I'm Susan. Welcome to Tea and Games. Tea today is Builders. This is like about my third cup, so I've had to reheat a little bit. So, not too hot to drink this morning. We're going to do something a little bit different. This is going to be kind of an audience participation video. I mean, more than the others are even, in that I'm definitely going to want your input and feedback and comments, and I'm going to be very interested to hear what you have to say about this. But first, I do have some sad news for those of you who aren't on Discord and don't know. Our elder dog passed away last week. She was only 10 years old, but she had a lot of health problems, including heart failure. She was the leader of our little pack, and we're going to miss her a lot. And that's kind of thrown me off my game a little bit this past week. But nevertheless, last weekend was my nephew's graduation from high school. And so there was an after party thing. In which there was going to be, I think the family had some kind of a VR thing set up in the other room, and they were running like groups of people through there. I had a headache, so I did not do that because I felt like that would not be a good combination with the headache. But there was just kind of, at the time, I just didn't know exactly what the setup was going to be. I mean, I knew that we had a room in a venue, and I knew that there would be VR. But I didn't know if the VR was going to be in the same room or if it was going to be in a separate room. I didn't know if we were going to have big tables or small tables. I had some idea of who was going to be there, but I didn't necessarily know all of the people all that well or what they want in terms of games. Most of them were non-gamers, I would say. So I thought I would just grab my trusty quiver case, which I rarely ever use. Stuff some card games into it and take it just in case. Just in case there was a time where essentially there were some people like doing the VR thing and there were adults like just sitting around talking and we could play a card game while we chatted. Because you can do that with card games. Card games can be very casual, spur of the moment, just pull out the cards and do the thing while you're talking with people. They're a little bit more spur of the moment than most board games. And they have a little bit less stuff than, say, a party game, although a lot of card games play large numbers of people. So that morning I went through and I decided what I was going to stuff in my quiver case just in case. And this is what I came up with. Most people know how to play card games, and at least playing card games. And I did not think to stick a deck of cards in there because after I had pulled some other card games in there, I just felt like, wow, I've got a lot of choices here. We're probably only going to play one, and I just didn't think to put a deck of cards in here. A deck of cards, and I also didn't think of Milliborns, which would have been a good choice because that's kind of a no-brainer card game. And both Milliborns and a standard playing card deck would have fit into the end of this quiver case because this end here is pretty much empty except for dividers and a wrist strap, and it's got empty space there. So I could have put more games in there. But I didn't think of that, and after I stacked this many in there and scooched up all of the dividers, I felt like, yeah, we got more than enough, because we're probably not going to play any of these. So I thought about it a bit, and here's what I decided to go with. And I know that some of you hardcore gamers watching this, you're going to start screaming and throwing things at the screen with my first two choices, because I know that there are a lot of real board gamers who just loathe these games. But at the same time, I cannot ignore the fact that they are super popular and a lot of people know how to play them. And see, that's the thing. If you're just going into an unknown situation, just dropping into something, and you just want to get like a casual fast card game going, you don't want to have much setup. You don't want to have a teach, not much of a teach at all. So one of the games that I did here was, oh, is this it? Yes, it is. Monty Python Flux. And I know there are people who hate Flux. If you're not familiar with Flux, Flux is basically chaos in a deck of cards. The rules change every time somebody plays a card, just about. There are a lot of different flavors of Flux. It has been rethemed with new cards for, like, I don't know, there are probably 2-3 dozen different types of Flux. I mean, basically, whatever sort of thing you like, you can find some pop culture version of Flux for it. I went with Monty Python Flux because I felt like, as soon as I found out what Flux was really all about, and I started looking into the different types of Fluxes, I thought, Monty Python, yes, this will be my Flux, because Monty Python fits perfectly, thematically, with Flux. I mean, it just has the kind of absurd silliness that, I mean, it's perfectly thematic for Monty Python. If Monty Python were doing a sketch in which they invented a card game as they went along, they would probably come up with something very much like this. So, yeah, and I know that some of the people, at least, that were going to be there are Monty Python fans. As it turned out, the group sitting at our table were probably a little thin on that, so that's not what we ended up playing. But here's the thing. It's a fast, easy teach, and there are a huge number of people who have already played some version of Flux. It's one of those games. It's got all these pop culture versions. A lot of people know it. If you just say the word Flux in any random group of non-gaming people, you're going to get a lot of people raise their hand and go, yeah, but because it's very popular. And it is fun, particularly the Monty Python version. There's singing. No singing. But so I threw that in there. And the other one that is a very, very popular card game franchise that I threw in here is Star Munchkin. My niece and nephew really like Munchkin. They each have their own Munchkin decks. It seems like everybody has a different Munchkin deck because it's like they find one that fits for their personality, for the theme, sort of like I did with Flux. But here's the thing. A lot of people know how to play Munchkin. Now, Munchkin, much to my dismay, it's kind of a little rules heavy. I mean, this here, this whole thing underneath here, this is the booklet for it. This is the booklet for Star Munchkin. I'm like looking at this and I'm going like, wow, I did not remember it being that complicated. It's been a while since we played 2 of these, front and back. So I'm just like looking at this and I'm going, yeah, well, this would be good if everybody at the table knows how to play Munchkin and wants to play Munchkin. So, and the rule book did fit in here in the quiver case, kind of, sort of, down here at the end. And now I can't get it back in there. Yeah, we're just going to leave that out, and I'll put these back in here. But Munchkin and Flux are 2 games that a lot of people who don't play games know how to play. It's kind of like Exploding Kittens, which I don't have. We had Exploding Kittens, and we played it with the family, and the game was so overly long and so excruciatingly tedious that we got rid of our copy because it just was so seriously not fun. And I know a lot of people have a lot of fun with this game, but our experience of the game was the exact opposite. So really, we need to have a game that we're going to have fun with every time we play it. And that's going to be, and these games, Flux plays 2 to 6. Star Munchkin plays 3 to 6. When I was looking through the card games on my shelf, I was not thinking about Sea Salt and Paper, which we love because it only plays up to 4. And while we adore playing this game, and I think that a lot of people there would have enjoyed playing it too, it would be dependent upon the group never having more than 4 floating in and out of the table and playing games. So I went for things that played up to 6 or 8, just in case, because those games can also play smaller groups like 4. I also put in here, yeah, here. And it's in so tight because I scooted that thing all the way down. I put in Quiddler, the word game. And the Quiddler rules fold up really small, so they just slide right in there in the end. Quiddler is like Scrabble, and you're making words in your hand, and we're not connecting to anybody else's words. But if you have people that are word nerds, they're going to really resonate with this. And I mean, it's a lot more portable than a Scrabble board. You got to admit, it's a deck of cards. Admittedly, it's a fat deck of cards, but it will fit in a standard deck box because that's how I carry mine usually. You do need to add up things between the rounds, but the first time we played it, I didn't have like a Quiddler scorebook or anything like that. We just tallied it up on a scrap of paper and kept a running count. So that would work. And I also threw in, and again, the rule book folds up really small, Fuji Flush. Now, admittedly, Fuji Flush was not the huge hit with the family that I thought it would be, but it is a fun party game, and so I got one game for people that are numbers people, one game for people that are word people, and I've got the Munchkin and the Flux for people who just know how to play random small card games. I should have probably put something like Uno in here, but I don't actually own Uno. I learned how to play Uno at a New Year's Eve party when I was in college, and we played it with a standard deck of playing cards. That's how I was taught. Basically, the various different actions that you take with the cards were assigned to different cards in the standard deck. I don't know, they may have pulled some cards out of the deck. I'm not sure, but yeah, that's how I played Uno. So I don't actually own an Uno deck. We don't play it very often, and usually somebody else has got an Uno deck. I should probably put one of those into the collection now that I'm thinking about it. So yeah, we did that, and then I also threw in Chili Mafia because the family knows how to play Chili Mafia. We played Chili Mafia with the family, and they liked it a lot. So depending upon who in the family group ended up around us, that might have been a possibility, which would have had, whoa, that card got weirdly, oh gosh, I think something got bent. It should not have. Did it just bend just now? So anyhow, the family know how to play Chili Mafia. So certain members of the family, there were extended family there too, but it was entirely possible that we could have played that and had zero teach depending upon who ended up around us and up for a game. So that was definitely a consideration there. And I did. I'm pulling these cards out of here, and I've got the boxes sitting here like an idiot. Monty Python Flux. Let's see what some of the cards look like on the back. Star Munchkin. It's kind of like a sci-fi satire. That's why I chose this one for myself. Chili Mafia. I only took the standard deck. We have the expansion, but I just left the expansion here. That's why this box is not quite as empty as some of the others. The Quiddler I keep in just a deck box. Same thing with the Fuji Flush. And I did also Bonanza. I have the 25th anniversary edition of Uwe Rosenberg's first game, Bonanza, which is a silly little card game with negotiation and stuff like that. I think the family might like that, and I brought it along. I wasn't sure about, Robert and I, we've only played it at 2, so I wasn't sure about teaching the longer version to a mixed group in kind of a chaotic atmosphere, but I brought it along because it plays 2 to 7. Chili Mafia plays 2 to 8. Fuji Flush 3 to 8. Quiddler 1 to 8. I didn't realize there was a solo of Quiddler until now. So let me see. Star Munchkin 3 to 6, Monty Python Flex 2 to 6. Star Munchkin also came with a D6, which I can put into this, I don't know if you can see this here, the mesh area here. Bonanza came with a gold coin for some version of Bonanza. The 25th anniversary edition has like a gazillion different versions or ways to play and variations with different cards. It's got like all the cards in there. So yeah, that's got a lot of stuff. And a gold coin is one of them. The Bonanza rulebook for the 25th anniversary edition fits in this mesh area here. And the last game that I put in was Doomlings, which is the newest card game we've gotten. Doomlings. And its rule book, which is folded in half, fits in here. And I've got some other rule book behind that. Maybe Fuji Flush. No, it's in here, so I'm not sure. Anyway, being able to fit the rule book in to answer rules questions or check on rules if anybody has a question, that was one of my criteria, and that actually let a few things out, because sometimes small games have big rule books. Like, I was sort of shocked at the size of the rule book for Star Munchkin. But I could have put in a deck of playing cards and Milliborns. Those would have both been pretty easy. I considered other party games that were just party games, some of which were also card games. I considered Soda Smugglers. It doesn't have that many cards, but it plays 3 to 8. It has 2 types of tokens, and the rule book wouldn't fit in there. And since we've only played it once, I didn't feel confident leaving the rule book behind, even though it is a fairly simple game. Monstrosity, party game that I would like to play with the fam, but it has boards and pins. It's a drawing game. I tried to fit Yahtzee in here, but the dice cup, I have actually small pins and dice and score sheets rolled up inside the dice cup with the lid, but the dice cup, you couldn't close the quiver case with the dice cup in it. So I couldn't do Yahtzee. Welcome to will play a whole heck of a lot of people, but boards. So, I mean, if I were going in a different situation, and I wasn't just going to say, I'm going like to random party situation. If I were planning something in which I and a bunch of people were going to play party games and games together, then the list of games would have looked very, very different. But essentially, I was going for really pretty easy entry card games and games that could be played with a bunch of people in a very casual setting, just sitting around talking. So it went into my consideration. Most people play card games and know how to play card games. Doomlings was a very, very easy teach. Robert and I were the only two who knew how to play Doomlings, and we did such a good job teaching that everybody had a better score than Robert and I. But in my defense, I got like the worst Doomlings hand I have ever gotten. I had no dominant traits. None. Everybody else at the table had drawn dominant traits, one or more. And I had no dominant traits. I had no high point cards at all. The highest point I had was 3, and I had 1, maybe 2. I think I may have gotten a second 3 right at the end of the game when it was too late to help me. So, I mean, I actually only played 1 3 down, and the rest of my cards were all 1s and 2s. And I mean, everybody else was, and I also didn't get those gene pool bumps, which extend the number of cards, increase the number of cards you have in your hand. I think I got 1+ on gene pool. I spent most of the game just having my gene pool depleted, like having fewer and fewer cards in my hand. So, and you draw back up to that level, which means, you know, I'm not getting those high cards. I'm still, it's not like I'm increasing my gene pool and drawing more cards up. So yeah, I just had like an astonishingly bad hand. And very early in the game, we had a catastrophe where we had to like pass our hands around the table. So everybody was playing somebody else's hand, but that was so early in the game. I don't think it affected most of the gameplay. We all had a good time, though. We really did. And I would like to know down in the comments, because I'm just thinking card games for anyone. If you're just going, you want to just go like, just take a few card games or a card game, and you're going to be going into a group of people, some of whom may possibly be familiar with modern board games, some not. The situation may be very fluid or chaotic, or people going in and out. You don't know what kind of table space you're going to have, but you're just going to potentially have the opportunity to sit around and play very casual like card games with a random group of people. What would you pick? I want to know in the comments. I don't know that I did a particularly stellar job of picking, but I had a kind of logic to it. I mean, there are a lot of people who know how to play Flux and Munchkin. There was a lot of family there, and I knew the family knew how to play Munchkin and Flux, as well as Chili Mafia here. So I leaned into what I knew that they knew and threw in a few other things like, and they also knew how to play Fuji Flush. So I also threw in things like Quiddler and Bonanza, and I guess Doomlings, I leaned into that a bit because it is still new. It is still new and shiny, literally shiny. So the shine has not gone off off Doomlings, either literally or figuratively. But yeah, what would you pick in a situation like that where you knew some of the people maybe, but maybe not all of the people, and you didn't know what the place you were going to was going to be like, and you didn't know what the general situation and flow of the thing was going to be like. Some of the people that were in our group went off and did VR and then came back, and we just played their hand while they were gone. Turns out my brother-in-law had an end of the world card. He had a card that precipitated the end of the world, but he didn't realize what it was. So while he was gone, we ended the world. Which was advantageous for everybody at the table except Robert and I, because we were just floundering. Oh, well. Anyhow, a good time was had by all. I want to know what you think about choices for kind of sort of iffy, unknown situations, potentially large groups of people, very, very light, casual card games that have little teach, possibly little table presence or whatever. So let me know what you would have picked. I'd be happy to know. We are always interested in finding like new, neat, nifty card games. And I will see y'all next time round the table. Thanks for watching and welcome to new subscribers. Yes.